Hello, it's Tuesday. I'm Dale, and he's Mike.
Hey, Dale, what's going on? Are we off the air or are we about to go off the air? Is that what's going on here?
One of my favorite slides from the TV biz when I was in it was still in it. Um, was the slide that says, "Sorry, we are off the air." How do you show that to anybody?
well, um, yeah, but they had, one slide up and they weren't really off the air because they were broadcasting that signal.
Exactly, that was my point. I just
Yes.
found that funny, but nobody else did. Well,
Yes.
yes, of course.
But
Well,
no,
when do you
it was the
use this?
simplest thing that they do is
Yeah.
broadcasting that signal because it doesn't require anybody to sit there and monitor it or anything like that.
But they had to confess they'd never ever put that up, even when they weren't programming something. So it was weird. Anyway, we are going to let you in, just like we let you into the newsroom the other day, to tell you about how we do things and how careful we're always trying to be. If it's conjecture, we'll tell you. But sometimes we need
Oh,
to make,
and by the way, here's the disclaimer. Tonight's program is conjecture.
oh, parts of it may be, but parts of it we
Yes,
know
parts
are
of it.
true.
Yes, we do. We actually know some parts of tonight's program are true.
Yeah,
So
it's
stay
always
tuned
nice
for
to
that.
know that. Yes, stay tuned for that. That'll be in the second hour.
Yes.
So we do have news for you, but then a little later we're going to let you in on something we did today that's never ever been done before,
Yeah,
and
that's
it
that's
involves
that's a little
video.
that's laying a little heavy fanfare on this particular thing, in my
Well,
humble opinion. But
it wasn't a huge successful experiment, but it had not been done
yes.
before, not in
Oh,
Josephine
but
County.
listen, hey, the Russians crashed on the other side of the moon. So today we were the Russians. Tomorrow we'll be victorious.
Okay, yeah, all
Yeah,
right.
don't
So
you remember when we were on the moon, the Russians crashed on the other side and they all died. Don't you remember
they
that?
all died. Oh yeah, right. That's very similar to the Zapruder film.
Not
And
all the Russians, but the Russian cosmonauts. Don't you remember we were
sure,
trying to race to the moon.
yeah,
You don't
right.
remember that?
No, no, no. It's like I said,
Jeez.
it's like the Zapruder film where the guy says, "I don't understand what all the controversy is about." Don't you remember seeing the footage where the guy puts a gun up against the president's head? No, no.
Yes.
Well, where's the
That
coverage
never
of that?
happened.
Oh, brother.
Yes.
Okay, so um, big news today.
Mm.
Why don't you announce it, Mike? This is a great little
Oh,
piece of news.
wow. I mean, I would feel kind of weird because you went and got that story,
I did.
um, albeit inadvertent. It wasn't you weren't intending to get this story, but you did get it plopped right on you there.
Well, I went and I
No,
asked, but I
yes,
was
and and
surprised I
and by
got an
all means, please announce it because listen, we speculated about this, I believe, last night as to what was going on, and
right.
so yeah, hit him with the full juice there.
Well, it's official. The Manor Development Project, the drone project out at the Ivy Airport, has crashed and burned. It's over.
Yes, it's over. Yes, all
The
done.
the 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 drone shot themselves down.
That's right.
So many analogies. The county has sent an official letter to Manor Development. Remember those guys that were the biggest contributors to Simon Hare re-election campaign? And then when
Mm-hmm.
Simon Hare was asked, well, but what about their past? I don't care about their past. Well, of course he doesn't care about their past. His only past he needs to know about is they gave him a boatload of money, more than any other contributor did. And so,
Yes.
wasn't it Jim Frick who looks like he may be? I asked Simon about this today. We'll tell you about this in a minute. Is Jim Frick one of your
Yes.
partners? And so Simon preferred not to answer. He acted confused. I'm
Oh,
confused by your question,
I
Mr.
can't
Matthews.
imagine.
He's so
Why?
confused.
It's like where did you get those glasses you're wearing today?
You mean the
It's the
ones on
same
top
kind
of
of
my
class,
head?
right? Yes.
He's always wearing his sunglasses on top of his head. He thinks it's Miami Vice. So but it's Josephine County Vice. Oh, what a brilliant boy, Neil.
Yes.
Okay, so in this case, it turns out, when were they going to tell us that this deal
Hmm.
with Manor Development and Larry Osborne and all those drones at the airport? Remember how many? It was 500 jobs. No, 1,000 jobs. No, 10,000 jobs. It's over.
Yeah, we had speculated earlier that the executive session that they went into here last week was for this purpose.
Well, yes, and they've met a couple of times about this, and this now it's official. Except they still haven't told us about it. Okay, we found out because that's what we do, but they haven't announced it. Not a word.
Right.
And even
Yes,
when they do announce it, it's not going to be in the Courier.
Right, Jim Moore, if you're watching tonight, this is how it's done.
This is called news.
You find out the news, and then you tell people about it. That's how you do it.
No, Mike, you got it all backwards. You find out the news, and then you cover it up. It's not covering the story. It's covering up the story. Now, why would you think, Mike, that they would not
that's why we're doing this wrong. We're doing this all wrong, Dale.
Yes. Why would you think that they would not want to tell, not want to tell anybody about this when it started? It was a big deal. Oh, wow, look at what's happening. Look at us. Now they're sort of slinking away. Why are they slinking away into the shadows, Mike?
Well, because this is not a stellar moment for them, and this is why they did it in executive session too. So none of us would find out about it. And they're just going to hope to go on. Listen, had you not,
asked just the right person.
Yes, you asked just the right person and got the answer to this question today. Had you not, this would not have come out for some time to come. I mean, it would, you'd have to wait until some people, cornered Simon in a bar somewhere after he'd had a couple of drinks, and he would have said, yeah, I got to confess, that's all, that's a done deal.
But what he'd do is he'd actually do it through a text to underage girls.
Oh, right. Yes, exactly. And then we'd be hearing about it from
their father.
The high school newspaper.
That would be great. Wouldn't it be wonderful to have a vibrant, effective high school newspaper? I know there's some people out there, oh, no. I can see Sherry Aikens. That's the worst idea ever. She was the one that thought it was the worst idea ever that we would start covering the commissioners with cameras. Yeah, well,
we
could start covering with dirt. That would be a start.
Now, Dale. Wow.
I got a backhoe and a 45.
He was just talking about the Zapruder film a few minutes ago. That's scary. Wow. Yes, not yet. First, we vote them out of office and let them get old on their pension, and then we cover them with dirt.
Right. Okay, so that's the big cutting edge piece of news here. Well, you knew what was coming, but they haven't announced it, and we announced it to you. Yay, it's a good thing for you. You watch the show. Tell all your friends. All the cool kids come here. Okay, so another piece.
Now, you may recall, hang on a second, before you may recall that when that news was happening, when that news came out, it was on all the TV stations. It was on KMED and KCBS. It was on all the radio and KJO and the Courier and all that.
Front
and now
page
that it's died, right? You heard it here first, and you're not likely to hear it anywhere else for a while, unless Dale's on as a guest or something, maybe with Bill tomorrow. Maybe.
I'm definitely going to talk with Bill because we found out about it. I was on Bill's show this morning talking to them about the other news, which was Wally Hicks straightened up, decided to fly right, and went in and told the commissioners what's what about disobeying the law. They were not happy, buddy. They were not happy. Another little piece of news, and we're going to play a little clip for you so that you can get up to speed on that. And so from this morning with Bill Meyer on the Bill Meyer Show, hey, appropriately named, sort of like our show, which is the Dale and Mike Show, because it involves Dale and Mike. It's very innovative.
Can we analyze that a little deeper, Dale?
Yeah.
I'm not sure that's enough.
Does anyone really know themselves? So
let's get into entomology here.
You mean insects? I don't think so. Okay. But okay. So
am I using the wrong word?
Entomology is no etymology, but that's okay.
Etymology. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. Does it make any difference? Aren't they the same anyway when you really come down to it? So yesterday was the 800th anniversary of the Magna Carta. Look.
Yes. Yes.
The other piece of
Yes.
interesting
In
news.
13, 15, right? Yes.
12,
I
100 years
know
ago.
it.
12:15. Okay.
Yes.
12:15
12:15.
yesterday.
Yes.
So around noontime. The other piece of news that is waiting for the other shoe is when Keith Heck brought up the other day, not last Thursday, but the Thursday before, he said to Cheryl Walker, well, this project out at the North Valley Industrial Park, isn't that going to revert back to the city in about 12 years?
Mm.
Oh, really? Now, I'm hoping you've already heard this, and this is repetition for you, but if you hadn't, this is a multi-million-dollar project, which, as Manor Development, was Simon's biggest thing. In fact, Simon told Moody's that this was a wonderful deal, and Moody's decided to give us a top credit rating because of the drone project. So, oh boy, that's the best things that Josephine County has going for it. Really? A failed project, a crashed and burned project. We talked about this
Yeah.
yesterday. That's what the Hindenburg disaster thing that I put up.
I wonder if Simon called Moody's yesterday and said, "Hey, we need to adjust your little study there because the drone project. Apparently, the drone project was programmed with the same software we were using in the assessor's office,
the $600,000 software that went belly up."
Yes.
Yes.
That's
by
why.
The way,
all the drones were flying inverted, and then they just piled into the ground.
The day after they voted this in, that's when Larry Graves came in and talked about a couple of things. My people are working very hard. Okay. Well, they need double the amount of hours because, oh, you watch this story change. They're going to rewrite history. No, I never said it was for that. Because of all the work they were going to do for Manor Development. Now that they're doing nothing and never have done anything for Manor Development, chokes me up. Are they going to roll back 6 months and take those raises away, or stop the raises for them, or stop letting them work twice the amount of time to do nothing extra? When's that going to roll back?
I certainly hope so. And I'm also very much looking forward to the next project that Larry Graves vets all the agents on, so that we can move forward with our economic development and things like that.
This has been thoroughly vetted, Mr. Matthews. I looked into it very careful, Mr. Matthews. You keep asking these embarrassing questions, Mr. Matthews, and there's nothing to it. Larry Graves.
Yes.
Another person to watch.
Yeah, you might want to fire the guy.
What would happen in private industry?
Oh, gone.
So,
yeah.
Now, we also know, here's another thing they're not telling us about. Why are they not telling us about this? That they have no plans for what to do with that land that's underneath, we saw this today, the Dimmick Tower. They don't have any plans. They tore down the building, but they have no plans. And maybe they're going to find out in September about the possibility of scheduling a meeting to discuss the eventualities of coming up with a plan.
Yes. In other words,
they're not telling us these things,
going to
Mike.
do anything. Yeah, they're not going to do nothing with that. That's the answer to that question.
Why are they not telling us the news, Mike? They just don't. They're not telling anybody the news. I mean, you could tell it to the Courier, you could tell it to Kjo, but they're not going to put out the news. At least we would. But not only are they not telling us, they're not telling anybody.
Yeah, you know what? I mean, if you have to wonder what's going on in your government, you don't have transparency. Clearly,
remember the map.
Otherwise, the map. All of this stuff. Yes.
Well, that's
this would all be out in the open.
What's going on in the North Valley Industrial Park? Sandy Casanelli said, "Wait a minute." She didn't have the map, but she said, "Wait a minute. I understand that there's this little tendril that's now reaching up to where I live. Where'd that come from?" "Oh, Ms. Casanelli, you're obviously not paying attention. You must not know anything about the area in which you live." "Well, you were totally wrong about the exit 61, which everybody knows is constantly backing up onto the highway." "No, it's not." "Well, it's a failing intersection." "No, it's not." Even ODOT says, "No, it's not. We didn't make that up. That was somebody else." "Well, I can't connect the dots to that," Mr. Matthews says. So anyway, so she wants to know, what does it look like? So we got a map, all right, a black map with black details, with black legends, black on black on black. And this is what they gave to the public. The most transparent government in the world, according to Simon Hare.
Yes, right, and we know that isn't true because last fall Sandy Casanelli asked them a whole list of questions, and I think she sent it to them a couple of times. To each one of them, never got an answer to any of those questions. So I'm thinking if we're going to try to pursue the truth about this 12-year turnaround, 12-year deed signing over situation that's going to happen with North Valley Industrial Park, should we put in a FOIA to the commissioners, or should we try and dig it up on our own?
Well, you know what Cheryl Walker said about the Freedom of Information request. There's two of them that we're talking about. One of them is, we'd like to know a little bit about her emails. And she said, we'll never be able to answer your question because I have so many personal messages inside those emails. We'll never have the staff that can comb through those carefully and pull out the things that shouldn't be in there in the first place.
Yes.
So that's it. End of story. You can't ask for that.
Yes. We have our own preview of what it would be like to have Hillary Clinton as president. She's one of our commissioners right here. It's exact same situation. The only difference is who owned the server the emails are on. We own the server.
Yes,
so
we do.
That stuff ought to be publicized without any further input or permission from Ms. Walker, Mrs. Walker. Those should just be published.
Except that her husband has
there are emails.
Whatever. Okay. So this.
Oh, okay. Well, all right. Well,
yeah. So maybe
and we know from the news of right, and we know from the news of the last week, you can be pretty much anything that you want to be now. We're officially living in crazy town. Bizarro world.
Yeah, well,
if I want to be, listen, I've been a black woman ever since I was, 18 years old. So I don't live that way publicly, but, there's some pretty freaky stuff that happens after I'm off the air.
That lady says that she always drew pictures of herself as a child using a brown crayon, except her parents, who I think are German, said, no, she didn't. She never was that. She's a fake. Yeah. Her parents are calling her a fake. Really? Okay. Yes. All right. So we've got another. Go ahead.
No.
Fun news.
We have a horrible delay.
Okay, so sorry about that. So, but you have no delay. You now know the news. We did something, wasn't earth-shattering today, but it was pretty cool, and we're going to tell you about that in a couple of minutes, what we did, the news that we made. But first, let's talk a little bit about the news that Wally Hicks made. He went in, and he didn't read the Commissioners the Riot Act, but they were not happy. You would think that he had. And so here's my appearance this morning on the Bill Meyer Show. Mike?
To chat with Dale Matthews for a few days over badcounty.com. So it's time to circle around and find out, okay, what's happening there now? Dale, welcome back to the show. Morning.
Thank you for inviting me, sir.
So, Dale, this has been a bone of contention for a long, long time. And it has to do with the way that that government agencies, I know that when it comes to open meetings laws, in Jackson County, they take things pretty darn seriously. They're always, I'm just going to give you an example with the county commission here, with Danny Jordan keeping pretty tight rein on the schedules. When I say tight rein, I'm not saying he's cracking the whip, but all the county commissioners are always having to converse with one another. Where are you going to be? Are you going to be at this meeting? Okay, all right, well, I can't be there. All right, well, I can't go over here because you're going to be on this show, so we can't be there too because it would be a quorum and all this kind of stuff. They bend over backwards to avoid violating the Oregon open meetings law. Now, it's been a little more relaxed over in Josephine County, as we've talked with you several times about this over the years. So what is the latest development?
Well, if you agree with me that commissioners standing in a parking lot, having a short conversation, and then taking a vote doesn't sound like a good idea with no one around, then you'll greet this as good news.
Okay, now hold on. Before we go to the good news, so what have you caught commissioners just talking about business in a parking lot and then taking a vote right there?
Yes, and we also have a source inside. We do now because we're getting much bigger and more popular. We have a source inside the commissioner's office that routinely tells us when they stop into each other's office and have a little conversation and decide on things. They took an oath. That's breaking the law. And as Keith Heck pointed out, he said this 3 times, I know we're breaking the law, and I don't care.
I remember that. I know we're breaking the law and we don't care. I recall that quote here. So county council, though, is attempting or has reined them in, or at least reined this behavior. What's Wally Hicks up to with this?
Well, he officially warned them. He put it in writing. It's always been in writing. It's part of the state law. Sure. They swore to uphold this law. He put it in writing on county letterhead and slid it across the table to them during an official meeting that we taped. And they said, well, no, I mean, we can still do that. No.
Okay. All right.
We didn't take a vote.
All right. No. Take us through this then.
Right.
What did Wally Hicks tell them then? And what did they say? Well, could we take a vote in the parking lot? I imagine there was a bit of an exchange going on here.
There was. Now, they've always heard this, and we can all read English, and we can go look at the law for ourselves. They don't want to obey this law, but it says basically you are not allowed to do what you and I just talked about. And so he gave them this piece of paper, and they now are holding it in their hands. And this is a number of different things, like you can do this and you can't do this. The most important thing, the trump card, is the following phrase, and everybody's going to want to know this if you're interested in watching over your government. Okay. Maybe you're not. That's okay. Go garden your tomatoes. But this says...
you better pay attention to the government, because the government wants to control how you garden your tomatoes too. So
they do, yes. This sentence, and this is where he stopped them cold, and they had no more arguments. They just look very angry. And it says, the meeting must be public with all the things that entails, and tell the people and invite them and all that. If 2 or more commissioners, a quorum, merely gather information, you're awake and listening, upon which a decision might be based. That's it. End of story. Yeah, but we didn't make a decision. Okay, it might be based. Oh, but we weren't sitting next to each other. It doesn't matter. Oh, but we didn't take a vote. It doesn't matter. If you're sitting in a meeting or any place and county business is discussed, not if tomatoes are being discussed, but unless that's county business.
So let's say if you had Keith Heck and Cheryl Walker get together and say, all right, we're going to go out and 4-H is having a special event, and we're going to go out there and garden together on premises there, and they're just sitting out there helping the kids and they're gardening and they're saying, hi, isn't this a great day? That's okay under the open meetings law, right?
Yeah, or one of the commissioners can go to a meeting and take off her shoe and pound the podium with it, and extol the virtues of things and dance around the room in an interpretive dance, saying why it's a great idea to vote for this. No problem.
I would love to see that, frankly. I think that would help Cheryl Walker's reelection possibilities if she were to go out there and do an interpretive dance. It would be good.
With a certain kind of person, yeah.
Yeah.
But and so it's simple. You just send one. That's all, and you check with each other as they do in Jackson County. Be sure that you.
I know in Jackson County, I tell you, they are slavishly devoted to making sure and follow this law, and they're very careful about where they all appear and speak together. And they
took an oath.
Yeah, they make sure that they don't speak together. Right. Unless it's going to be about...
took an oath also.
Yeah.
This didn't used to be a problem, because talking with some of the older commissioners that used to be commissioners, they say, we wouldn't even get in an elevator. Really? Well, we didn't want to appear as if we might be discussing something.
Yeah, it's about avoiding the appearance of the good old boy network, in which we're just doing everything, all the real discussion. Yeah, there's one thing of what we'll say out in the open public meeting, and then there's the real business being conducted behind doors or in the elevators or the smoke-filled rooms. But I guess there are no smoke-filled rooms now, but maybe they're vaping filled rooms, perhaps.
Well, this back room had smoke because it was pouring out of their ears. They were not happy, because we had said this all along. We've been saying this for years, and legal counsel finally stepped forward. Look, here's another...
Hey, I just want to say, though, Dale Matthews, once again, badcounty.com, the non-commercial video website that has the video of this sort of stuff we're talking about. this is good for Wally Hicks. Good for Wally Hicks that he finally set them straight and said, hey, listen, this is what the law says. This is what you're supposed to be doing. Good for him.
It is good for him. And when he first talked about his goals, Cheryl Walker said, well, I don't like that goal. And he said, I'm an elected official. This is not an editing session. I'm telling you what my goals are.
All right. So Wally is reining them in, or at least warning them that they're violating this. So let's revisit badcounty.com history. Let's go back a couple of years. Was it 2 years ago? Remember when the county commissioners appeared at a Rotary meeting, and they were members of the Rotary, correct? And were they not giving a speech on the state of the county?
And we were invited.
And
all the public was invited. They noticed it as a meeting where there'd be at least 2 commissioners. We had been there every year videotaping the state of the county report. It's usually kind of boring, but it's, okay, let's watch.
But still, this is county business we're talking about here.
Oh, absolutely. It's the state of the county report.
Now, it was being held at the Wild River over in Grants Pass. I remember that.
That's correct. Yeah.
And
Cheryl Walker was the presenter.
Okay.
And Keith Eck was in the audience. And she looked over and she saw us there and she says, oh, I don't want these people here. And so the owner of Wild River came over and said, you're going to have to leave. She doesn't want you here. And I said, look, I understand. I totally understand. You can not serve us because no shoes, no shirt, no service, whatever reason you want, you can do. I said, but this is state law. And so, sorry, sir, but all this is on tape. You could see it. I must respectfully decline to leave because that way you will be enforcing the idea that would be breaking state law. And I have to at least, please understand, I'm not trying to be rude to you, but I have to at least say, I have to counter that. And so they called the police.
And so the police came and they asked you to leave the Wild River out there. And so effectively what they were trying to say, though, is that unfortunately, once you had the county commissioners there appearing and they were discussing county business, then that private Rotary meeting supposedly was transformed by state law into a public meeting, whether they like to admit it or not.
Yeah, right? And we were also invited. We were all the public was invited. And afterwards, the bottom line was Cheryl Walker never regretted this. But the other 2 commissioners said, we probably shouldn't have done it that way.
Yeah. Now, what would Wally Hicks be able to weigh in on this? Perhaps kind of a forensic, using forensic law enforcement, as it were, because I would really be curious to find out from Wally Hicks himself what the story is, because that looked to me like a violation of open meetings law, and we talked about it back then.
Yeah, it definitely was. No, Wally's not going to go backwards on this. He's a good guy that's becoming better, but he's enough of a politician to realize that's not going to benefit.
There's no point in smacking their noses after the fact. Okay.
Well, they declared what they think about it. At least Cheryl has. She never apologized. She was president of Rotary just following that. They elected her president.
Now, did all 3, by the way, going back to that meeting, I know we're rehashing a little bit of history, but I want to make sure that I understand correctly, because I am going to ask Wally about this. I'm going to email him. All right. So, but we're all 3 speaking.
No. And what Wally
maybe that's to them. Well, maybe that's what they were. Maybe that's what they got you on, though.
No, they don't. Wally made clear then it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if any of you speak. It doesn't matter whether you're sitting next to each other. Remember the phrase. If you're gathering information, which means you're awake.
Even though they're not all 3 speaking, that's still violations and they have to avoid this, right?
It is. And so it's simple. Just send one. I mean, that's the world's simplest thing. Just send one. That's what they used to do.
Okay. Well, that's what they do in Jackson County. I know that.
Yeah.
Oh, all right.
And here's another practical example, and this involves money. So Simon Hare wasn't sure. In fact, he said he didn't want to give any more money to a certain organization. And so that certain organization had a meeting where they were going to wine him and dine him. And then also, and Keith Eck and Cheryl Walker said, I love this organization. We're going to give them money. And Simon Hare says, no, I don't think so. I don't see any benefit in giving them money. And so, but he went. He says, a little bit reluctantly to this meeting, but he went. And while he was at the meeting, which he later characterized as just a social gathering. They made the presentation, they fed him, they gave him something to drink, And then when he left, he said, that convinced me, and so I'm going to vote for it.
But you see, that's what you're trying to avoid here with the wining and dining and the appearance of an undue influence, right?
That's right.
Okay. All right. So it sounds like county council is trying to, and I guess there's a new sheriff in town. Well, there is a new sheriff in town, but there's also a new sheriff in the county commission, I suppose. So the reaction from the three commissioners not very positive about that.
Oh boy, were they unhappy. And here's probably what's going to happen. I mean, to be realistic about it, for about 3 weeks, the commissioners are going to clean up their act.
Okay.
And then they're going to revert back to, this is a lifetime habit. They're going to revert back to the back room, meeting in their office. Look, this just happened. They had a land use hearing. Now, land use hearing is a big deal because LUBA, the Land Use Board of Appeals, they have power. I mean, they can actually stop things from happening.
Some of the biggest bones of contention we have are property issues here in Southern Oregon.
That's right.
Yeah.
So Keith Heck, during the land use hearing, he says, and nobody knows why he said this. He said, oh, by the way, I was reading up on this case. Hey, never stop Keith Heck from reading something, please. And he says, and then another commissioner stopped in my office and asked me why I was bothering to read this. And so I stopped. What? So he said in public that another commissioner came in and convinced him to stop.
Okay, so here's the thing, though. What are there such serious lines of demarcation that you couldn't even have a commissioner just drop by and say hello in another commissioner's meeting? I mean, really?
No, come on now. They can say hello, but they can't say hello. I want you to vote for this.
Okay, all right.
They can't say hello. Let's talk about county business.
All right.
That's all.
Can they send the emails back and forth to one another and discuss county business?
That's a good question. Why is the state of Oregon now super sensitive about emails? Don't forget what Cheryl Walker said. You can't look at my emails. Well, why not? Because there's personal information in there, and there isn't enough hours in the day, and never will be.
Well, Cheryl Walker was using the Hillary Clinton excuses. All right, that's what she was doing. Okay. Yeah. All right.
And you'll never get a chance because there's not enough hours in the day to investigate me.
Now, don't they have their own email accounts with the county? Why don't they just conduct all the business through that?
Well, they do.
All right. Well, then what's the problem with looking at those?
This is against the law. Lane County got sued, and they lost $350,000, and two commissioners were fined $20,000 apiece, I think it was, because they were deciding, they were sharing information and deciding online in emails back and forth.
Okay, so they have to watch that too. So the open meetings law is very clear. Debate and conversation on public matters must be held in public where the public are able to see what's going on.
That answers the question that Mark Goins, the pastor here at that church, when he said that if you don't obey authority, you're like a Satan worshiper. He did say that. We have it on tape and witnesses.
I know.
If you accept the fact, if you accept that fact on it, by itself, then that means our founding fathers were Satan. No, they weren't. Come on, because they were rebelling against authority. But if you accept the fact in America that we are the authorities, we're supposed to be the bosses, then all of that makes sense. And since we're the bosses, our hired employees, temporary employees, definitely in this case, they must conduct their business in open in front of us. That's all.
Interesting that you brought that up because hired help, because I've used this term for government officials, even though I'm respectful of the office, but I try to remind folks that, listen, they are elected, but yet you effectively hire them. They are hired help. They're hired to do a particular job. And as such, you have the right, if not, dare I say, the duty to oversee what's going on. And you can't if they're able to conduct all this in smoke-filled rooms or behind the scenes, which is why Oregon has this open meetings law. However, the open meetings law does not seem to be very enforced by the state government. That's a challenge you're facing, right?
Yeah. All we can do now, all we have is a court of public opinion, honestly.
Okay. All right. But at least Wally Hicks, one of the good guys on the record here saying, hey, you guys, knock it off, right?
They weren't happy.
I'll be curious to see if they are going to be upholding the law that they swore to take an oath to uphold. So if they're going to obey it. All right. Badcounty.com. Great site. Take a look at these videos that Dale and I are talking about, these various issues. You can take a look at it yourself. And, of course, you end up having a news conversation every evening, you and Mike, at 7 o'clock, right?
We do. do, and we analyze it, and we play back tapes, and we talk about them, and we laugh.
All right. Well, tell me if there's any pushback over these coming days against the open meetings law. And if Wally Hicks is telling him, Wally Hicks is a good guy, smart lawyer, I'm sure that he's figured this out pretty clearly.
Since we have a source inside their offices, we'll know.
All right. Very good, Dale. Thanks for being on the show. Good to hear from you again.
Goodbye, sir.
Be well. It's Dale Matthews in Bad County.
So one of the results from that meeting...
Very substantive interview.
Thank you. Carl Wilson was at that same meeting at the Rotary Club, and he was laughing as the police were escorting us out of the room. And Cheryl Walker was following along as we were led out step by step. You know, the police guy got me, hey, you don't need to do that. I'm complying. I'm trying to explain. We don't want to hear any explanation. Okay. You know, state law. And so it's the only reason we'd kick it all, because it's breaking the law and you're helping them. Anyway, so Carl Wilson wasn't very happy. He was laughing while we were carted out. So the next time, which was the last time, I appeared on KJO, on their call-in show, when the commissioners were there, as I called in to say that Rotary Club had provided a place for these commissioners, we now know, according officially to legal counsel, to break the law. Well, you'll never appear on this show again. I'm banned for life by your state representative because I said something negative about the Rotary Club. There you go.
Yep.
That's the state of media. But we're slightly changing.
Your transparency will not be tolerated.
That's right. Mike and I did something today to slightly advance the state of the art. You may remember on the 19th of last month that we did, for the first time in Josephine County, okay, welcome to the 21st century, everybody, only 15 years in, we did something that had never been done before, is that we used a cell phone from out in front of the clerk's office. When the clerk was there and totally ignoring me, that was funny. He handed out press releases to everybody but Dale Matthews. Okay, whatever. You're live. That was funny. Anyway, it was the results of the election, in which his heartfelt feelings were crushed in that we once again didn't vote for his levy, their levy, that whole group's levy. And so we were broadcasting live, webcasting live from that spot. And then we walked across the street, still live, and joined Mike live for the rest of the evening. Okay. And so nobody had ever done that before, from inside the courthouse. So we did an experiment today. You want to tell them a little bit about that experiment and how it worked and didn't quite work, Mike?
Yeah, well, Dale goes to the little back room and on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and there's an admin session and a what do they call the other one? It's a
general discussion.
I'm sorry.
General discussion.
General
There's
discussion.
A lag. There's a lag here.
So,
everybody. Here's why.
Yeah, sorry. So those are not video recorded. You get a cheesy audio recording.
Hey, wait a minute. What do you mean they're not video recorded? They're not video recorded?
Oh, no. They're not video recorded by the county.
That's right. That's right.
Dale video records all of them. And as you can see from this piece of video here, it's beautiful looking video and, always is. And so what we wanted to try to do today was to do a live broadcast from there using the same technology we were using before on election night.
And now this was see, I'm going to talk while he changes the images. So this was that's what our wonderful high definition camera looks like. Wasn't that a gorgeous picture? And so what Mike did was he brought in a cell phone, and then we got this image.
Yeah, and this is the video, and as you can see, apparently Commissioner Walker has a hard time sitting still because she was rocking back and forth,
Okay, all right. So she was rocking. Let me talk here for a minute while you pull up the next one. So that was live from inside that meeting. Now it was sort of a boring meeting, except for what we were doing, which has never been done before. You'll notice that that picture really wasn't so wonderful. Now we do supply video to the TV stations. We've done it many times. This is, and when they get ours is broadcast quality. That was not quite broadcast quality, but you saw from the image before, high definition, that it is. Now, here's what happened when Channel 5 got a hold of the county's weekly business session and what it looked like when it was translated to Channel 5's video.
Yeah, I think what they're doing here is they had it playing on a CRT monitor, and then they were just shooting that with a video camera. So this is really, I mean, why not just tell people, or you could have some sock puppets or something like that to tell them what's going on. And this looks like it was 25 or 50 years ago, but as you can see, that's Keith Heck, Cheryl Walker, and Simon Hare.
And you can see their logo looked better than the picture did. Now, okay, when you're sitting at home and watching this on cable TV, if you still have cable, it doesn't look that bad, but that's pretty awful. Now, so now, the reason I put that in is now compare that with what we shot, and I think you'll see that ours doesn't look so bad in comparison.
Yes, and I believe that we can make a couple of upgrades and actually get some better video than this that you're looking at right here. Our biggest problem, though, is not the video.
Yeah.
Yes, our biggest problem is not the video. This actually looks pretty good in comparison to. I mean, the quality of the audio that we had was just atrocious, and so that's our next hurdle.
Okay, why don't you show them what it is that you came up with in order to try to capture great audio, Mike, please.
I think at this point Dale wants me to show you a salad bowl fashioned around a microphone somehow, so that it will look like a parabolic microphone, and that's not actually what we're going to use. We did have a shotgun mic that was mounted. There was a little mount that I found online that holds your cell phone, and then off to the side it holds a shotgun microphone. But even with that, the audio is just too poor quality because they talk really low in this back room session here. I mean, when you look at them here in this situation, you're sitting about, would you say you're probably 10, maybe 12 feet from the center of that table, Dale, when you're sitting there?
Right. And the idea that Cheryl Walker is going to allow them, we're not putting microphones on tables today, although the TV stations do it. They would never let us do that. Well, we're going to try. We're going to try. All they need is we've been asking for years. Even staff members will go, and they're leaning forward and they're going like this, they can't hear. This is what the parabolic microphone does. It creates a big ear, and they're going like this and they can't hear. Tony Correa, poor Tony Correa, he's sitting in the front row and he says, we can't hear you out here. And Simon Hare says, well, why don't you sit in the front row? Tony looks around. He is sitting in the front row. Hey, and then one time I couldn't hear any of them. I couldn't hear them. And I said, Simon, he was chair, we can't hear you. And his answer was very similar to the one where he says, it's going to cost you a lot of money to keep track of what we're doing, Mr. Matthews. How do you like that? He said, all that counts is if he points to the other board members, if they can hear me. Really? This is your public service?
Yes, and that's really that's the wrong mindset, to be sure.
Yes,
that's not how you're supposed to be doing business. You're supposed to be doing it for the people, and the whole point of doing it in this boardroom. I mean, why don't they just go sit in an office with the door closed? If the only people that it matters hears them are them themselves, then what are we doing here? Why are there chairs here for an audience to sit? What's the whole point of that?
Anyway.
No, the point is, Right. The point is, and this is what's going to help us get the microphone on the table, is that, hey, we are here so that people can hear what's going on here. You owe us the transparency. And if we cannot hear you, if we cannot document this the way we want to document it, and I believe that we have a right to document it as we care to, not as you care to present it to us.
They know this.
We have the right to document what happens there.
Oh, if you do that, Mr. Jones, then people will be able to hear what we're saying, even when Simon Hare literally whispers sometimes. They would be able to hear.
Yes, he
That's
really
the
does
problem.
kind of whisper sometimes.
You've just defined the problem.
But the nice thing
want
is,
to be heard.
In short here, we're working on things that we can do to broadcast this live. And if we can do that, and it isn't that big of a hoop to jump through, then it may be a regular occurrence.
Wow. That would be so cool. That really would be cool. Now, what would real public servants do? They'd move every daggone meeting into the Ann-Basker. They would hold the meetings on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. They would make them all a Monday business session, Wednesday business session, Friday business session. People would be allowed to ask questions, not going crazy, 3 minutes. I'd like to see a limit of 3 minutes on the presenters, all presenters.
Now, you may be able to see, if you're looking at this, is a still image here of the commissioners in the little back room, and you'll notice there's a video screen. And up on top of that video screen is a little blip bump. You can't really discern what it is, but you can see that there is something on top of that screen. Well, that is a very high quality webcam. They could, if they wanted to, put these on the web all by themselves. If they cared about transparency, that is what they would do. And they could arrange to make sure that the video looked good and the audio was good. And but they don't care about that. So that's why you don't have that.
The reason they installed that big piece of something is that this is going to make us much more efficient. But you know what? This has a negative impact on Simon Hare. He doesn't get to go to Salem and spend our money to get there and shake everybody's hand and get appointed to be the chair of the chair committee by sitting in this little back room and talking to them. Look at that guy. He's sitting in a room and he's not even here with us. Wow, you can't partake with us, Simon. Well, we're raising a toast to you, guy that doesn't have any money at all. Well, you have no lands and no money. This isn't what Simon Hare, you know how often they use this? Basically not at all. It's expensive. You go to the Ann-Basker tomorrow and you'll see a kind of a smaller high definition screen up next to the camera. It's right in front of you, up above the camera. And you'll notice that that's there. Now, what's that there for? And is it ever used? Well, that was a highfalutin timer. It was supposed to tell you how much time you had left. You know how many times they've used it? 0. This is your tax dollars at work. Yes. They've not used it at all, just to give you the time, as if the beep wasn't enough.
They apparently can't. They apparently can't figure out the technology because, you know, they purchased a brand new high definition switching system and new cameras and everything. And they've had those for at least 6 months now. Have they done anything with them? Have they mounted any of these cameras? No, because they don't care. They don't really care if they get this done. I guess they thought, boy, it sure would be nice to have all this new cool stuff. And then they got the new cool stuff and they go, well, none of us knows how to put this up, so we'll just leave it in the box.
We were doing the job for them for free. When we went up and we bid against the people who were doing, at the time, it's now done by IT, the information technology people. They can't handle the job. When we bid against them, we were told, oh, well, although we've just now put out the request for proposals, we've already chosen the winner. Really? And then I talked to Steve Rich, the legal counsel at the time. Well, you know, you could still win. No, I can't. They've already called the winner, and they haven't even put out the RFP yet. What kind of setup is this? We were doing it for free. Now, how were we outbid on this when we were doing it for free?
Yes.
And we never, ever, knock on wood, we never, ever made a mistake. Not ever. And when you look at the framing on that picture, you may not notice, but everybody's like, well, I think that blah, blah, blah. Hey, that's not good framing. Look at all this on top. I know maybe you don't care, but it looks kind of ridiculous. Okay? Well, that's what they do. Now, tomorrow's weekly business session is very important. See, we got to get moving on this show, Mike. It's just, we're only 5 minutes. Oh, no. Now we're 50 minutes in. Look, tomorrow's weekly business session is important. Here's what's going to happen, apparently, and here's what's not going to happen, apparently, because it's hard to find out what the county government is doing. They're your public service. They don't want to tell you what they're doing. We all thought that what was going to happen is tomorrow they were finally going to take a vote about the budget, about this budget here. And they are going to do that. But guess what they've decided not to include? The most important thing of all, which is, Mike?
Road dollars.
They're not going to do that. According to what they've recently decided in the little back room, which we want to bring to you live, since you've got the news without us filtering it. You don't need us to filter this stuff. I mean, we can if you like. But what they've decided is, well, they're going to get around to making that decision sometime in July, maybe. I mean, there's no hurry. It's just public safety. It's just the thing that they were harping about for the levy. And now that the levy hasn't passed, there's no real emergency. They said it was an emergency, but it's not really.
Yeah, my theory on that is they want to push it way out there so everybody will forget about it. So when they don't fund the sheriff's department, it's not news.
Good luck with that, because we have a nightly show now. And every time they say something or try not to say something, we tell everybody. And for some reason, they now no longer have the ability to keep things secret the way that they'd like to. Mike, what do you think about that, buddy?
Well, I think that kind of is pretty cool, actually. And listen, definitely come tomorrow, weekly business session, advocate for the use of public works money, road dollars to the sheriff. Do it, because even though they are not saying it's on the agenda, even though they're not saying that they're going to vote on that particular part of the budget, come and do it. They need to know the pressure's on. They need to know that the people want them to do it. I think that in their heart of hearts, they understand that. That's why they're putting it off to the middle of July, because they're hoping everybody's going to forget about this because it's current now.